Let me get this.
I said look over, I don't know how to work this camera.
Let me get it on over here. James is wilding right now.
Wait.
Hey, James, we lost the crowd, fam.
Yeah. Well, no. Here's the thing. They ask for proof, then they won't wait for the proof to come.
Yes, they don't want to see it anyway.
Content over everything.
Okay, Sahih al-Bukhari, the Book of Gifts. This is from Sahih al-Bukhari, and the Arabic reference would be Book 51, Hadith 28, and the English reference would be Volume 1, Book 47, Hadith 767. Narrated Maimuna, the wife of the Prophet, that she manumitted her slave girl, and the Prophet said to her, "You would have got more reward if you had given the slave girl to one of your maternal uncles." Okay? So people say, oh, Muhammad tried to outlaw slavery. But they ignore this though. They ignore the fact that Muhammad said it is better to give your slave to one of your family members than it is to free the slave. So that's not an abolitionist message, is it? Are you a slavery abolitionist if you say, oh, it's better to kind of give slaves to your family members than it is to free them? Think about that as a moral lesson if you're going to say like he's the ideal moral messenger or whatever. And the other thing I wanted to prove.
What's the reference, by the way?
Oh shit.
Yeah. Come here if you want.
Patient time.
What's the reference?
Yeah. So this is from Sahih al-Bukhari.
2594. Yeah. I'm just going to read the interpretation and read the explanation, then I'll get back to you. Yeah?
Okay. And the other thing I really want to show is that I claimed that Shamsi believes that if Shamsi was in charge and his buddies were in charge, and even if he was in charge tomorrow and he had this ideal Islamic state, slavery would be legal in it, and that's because Saleh Fawzan is one of the senior Saudi scholars that Shamsi follows and would praise. I'm sure you'll be able to easily find video footage of him praising this guy. He's Saleh Fawzan is one of the senior kind of professors of Islamic jurisprudence, and he's quoted as saying, is slavery is part of Islam, and it's legal. It's legal under his Islamic jurisprudence. And let's look at what the Quran says. What does the Quran say? It says in chapter 23, verses 1 to 6, and they will have succeeded those who, and then it lists a few attributes, and then it says, and those who guard their private parts, except from their wives and those their right hand possess. Those their right hand possess means slavery. So that they will have succeeded. There is no, and then it says and there will be no blame upon them. So how can you say that there will be no blame upon people who don't have sex with their slaves, unless you're condoning not only slavery but also having sex with your slaves, having sex with people who you have complete authority over. That's coercion. That's duress.
It's rape. James, can I respond?
Yeah. Go for it.
I would say that slavery has been practiced in every country, in every society throughout history, or for the majority of history. There has been various forms of slavery. Nowhere in the Bible is slavery forbidden. Jesus never speaks about it, and he lived in a time and a place where slavery was rife and was practiced. It would have been a part of normal life. When Muhammad came, slavery was still a part of normal life. People kept slaves. It was legal. It was normal. And there are things in the Quran that talk about treating slaves well, which was probably revolutionary at the time. It was probably revolutionary. Okay, but
no one wants to be owned.
Hear me out. No one wants to be owned. I agree. No, I'm not. I'll clarify. No, I'm not.
He's an undercover Sufi.
Who knows what I am? I should refuse to answer that question, but I'll tell you I'm not. And he came and he said, treat the slaves well. There's probably a hadith that you picked out that out of context looks bad, or said he should.
Why do you assume it's out of context?
Well, because it's the only hadith we've mentioned today.
What do you mean it's the only hadith that's been mentioned today?
It's one hadith that you've mentioned out of all the many thousands of hadith, and the Quran is always more
what do you mean when it's out of context?
Than the. I mean, you've pulled out one that.
Are you saying am I misrepresenting what that hadith states? Am I kind of twisting it?
But my overarching point here is that the Quran supersedes the hadith when it comes to authority.
Okay, and I've just read out the Quran verse saying they will have no blame upon them, those who they will have succeeded, those who guide their private parts, except from those their right hands possess, and there will be no blame from them. That's in the opening of chapter 23.
Yeah, because people did own slaves at that time.
Okay, so it's saying that there's no blame on owning slaves and having sex with them.
I know, I agree. It does say that. And 1,500 years later, that sounds horrendous.
Yeah, so it's not the ideal, moral example.
No, it's not. It's not, and you shouldn't live as people lived 1,500 years ago. But 1,500 years ago, saying things like "be good to your slaves" and a good thing to do is free a slave. I believe freeing a slave was a substitute for if you couldn't fast, or if you needed to make up for something, a way of repenting. A good thing to do was to free a slave. So 1,500 years ago, Islam took a step towards a slave-free society. 1,500 years later, we need to keep going forward and not go backwards to how it was then. And the people who follow the strict Salafi doctrine that you were talking about, that wants to revert back to the way Islam was in the first 2 generations of Islam, I think are going in the wrong direction, and they are literalists who look at the letter of the law rather than understand the spirit of the law, which is to progress and become better and be more moral.
Okay, so, but there are a couple of points there. So you said that in some ways it had a liberalizing effect and it made some improvements of what the situation was in Arabia at the time. Yeah. Okay, that's true. Okay. But if you say, and now your deen is completed, this is the ideal set of rules to run society by, don't innovate from this, that's a bad thing, and that's what Muhammad did. And so he actually, even though he improved things a little bit, he prevented things from improving further, which is why it was the Western world who had to say to the Islamic world, no, actually outlaw slavery, actually go through with abolitionism. It was only when a pressure started being applied that then some Ottoman scholars started issuing fatwas saying, oh, actually, let's outlaw it now, okay? And then other parts of the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Egypt, Sudan, many other fully Muslim countries, they were actually much later than the rest of the Ottoman Empire in outlawing slavery. Okay, so I think we can admit
Saudi Arabia outlawed it in the 60s.
Yeah, 60s, yeah. And they weren't even the last. Mauritania was maybe 2007 or something. But so I'm not going to say that Muhammad was the worst person ever born. Okay, but I don't think it's. You don't just say he did good for his time and leave it there. You need to look at things a bit more. You need to look at what's actually resulted from his actions. And the other results of his actions are his doctrine of offensive jihad has caused a lot of death, a lot of people invading people who had never attacked them before, like the invasion of Arabs into Egypt and then down into Sudan, attacking the Christian kingdom of Makuria, and even within Muhammad's lifetime, some people often put forth the claim that Muhammad only defended himself and the Muslims only defended themselves. But that's not true. You just need to look at the last couple of years of his life, and you look at the attack that he made against the idol worshippers in Yemen. He just attacked them because they were worshipping idols. He did this to several people in the last couple of years of his life. He just attacked people because they weren't following the right religion. And there was no record of these people the Banu Tai, for example. They never attacked the Muslims. I think it was Dul Kulasa, the people in Yemen who are worshipping idols, they never attacked the Muslims either. So, what was the other thing you said? Oh yeah, and if it's just Salafis who is it just Salafis who are literalists and adopt this letter of the law process? No, I don't believe so. Salafis are more literalists than other madhabs, other traditional schools of thought, but their main differences are on things like whether you should worship the graves of prophets. They would actually agree to a large extent about what the ideal Sharia society would look like. If you spoke to a traditionalist Hanafi, a traditionalist Shafi. Shafis, by the way, think that female genital mutilation is fard, is obligatory. Okay, so it's not just Salafis who follow, let's say, a Salafi madhab. Any of the traditionalist madhabs are equally abhorrent in this day and age.
With any religious community, there will be a broad spectrum, and I singled out the Salafi you want to call it a madhab. I believe they do away with madhabs and
but we can inform.
Their own one
we can informally call them like that. Okay. It's
whatever
not,
you like to call it. I singled it out because I believe they are towards the more conservative end of the spectrum, and I would prefer that people have a more liberal, spiritual understanding of their religion.
What
and
do
I
you
think there are Muslims that have that, who do integrate, who look at things like, as you called it, FGM, they might call it female circumcision and say, well, no, that's not for us. I don't know. I think it's impossible to say this is what they believe. Every Shafi believes this, every Salafi believes this, because people are human beings, and I have a lot of good friends who are inspired by their religion, and they don't take it literally, and they have it in their heart where it should be, and not as a literal word for word instruction manual for how they interact with people.
Okay. Like what is Islam? Is Islam what people who call themselves Muslims do and believe collectively, or is Islam the scripture and behaviour of Muhammad and his teachings?
People won't like it, but for me, there are 1.5 billion different versions of Islam.
So the first. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, in that case, like, I'd say that like people in general are good. That's one of the things I believe. And I don't think if people behave in good ways, sometimes that will be due to the religious scripture they've read. A lot of the times it won't be. So like, I think the reason why kind of Muslims over time lots of them have started like feeling embarrassed about slavery and saying like kind of, issuing rulings against it and like trying to find ways to look at Muhammad's wartime adventures as being purely defensive. That's an expression of their own good nature, and they're actually being better than the founder of their religion in that respect. So, it's good for us that most Muslims are better than what I'd say pure Islam is, which is what the teachings actually.
I don't think there is a pure Islam, because anyone who picks up a book is interpreting it in their own way. That's my view. If there's someone, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. And if there's a Muslim here who wants to speak with more authority than I have, then please come forward. Okay. That's pretty much all. But what else you want to say? Close the show before I freeze.
I know, like, every religion's open to interpretation, but if you kind of see something bad written down, like if you fear rebellion in your wives, then first advise them, then leave them in their beds, then hit them. And then if you try and interpret that and think, maybe hit them actually means like tap them with a toothbrush stick. Like lots of people like to think that. If you reach that interpretation, that's an expression of your decency and humanity and good nature. Yes. That's that doesn't come from Islam. Your morals aren't coming from Islam in that respect. If you're an open book and you're just like I'll accept as benevolent whatever the messenger of God has said, just lay it at me. What is he saying? What's the most honest interpretation and direct interpretation of what he said? Then you're probably going to end up like a traditionalist or a Salafi.
I mean, on that note, and the beat them. The word, I've heard people try and do mental gymnastics with it and say, no, it could mean this, it could mean yell at them. The point is, back then, 1,500 years ago, unfortunately, everyone did beat their wife, and they beat them really hard. And this revelation said the beating shouldn't leave a mark, should be very light. People have said it could be like
but then according to what?
But according to people with the most humane, most liberal, most kind understanding of their religion. I look at it now 1,500 years ago and say, what? Beat my wife? You're ridiculous. But everyone did beat their wife back then, and this was again a step in the right direction.
Everyone in the world or in that community?
I would imagine in that community. So yeah, sorry to yes, I shouldn't say in the world.
Yeah.
Possibly everyone in the world, but
common in this country, man. Come on.
It was only was it last year?
Nothing to do with Islam. Wife beating is a common problem in this society.
But is it moral? So is it moral?
No. But he said no. But he said the killer. You ask him the question. You ask him the question. Said worldwide or for that particular?
Let me charge.
He made it specific to Muslims, which is wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
Let me do a little. But I'm going
You're
to
done.
thank you guys and just finish a chat with this guy because my
I'll be
battery's
back in
dying.
just a minute.
Well, let me
Take him away from the camera.
No, stay. Yeah, stay.
Okay.
But I don't want to. It's going to be a little bit of someone do a dance or something because we're going to be quiet for a second. All right, hold on.
Sorry, what were you guys saying?
No, I was going to say worldwide, but you're talking about actually being like based on scripture, like this is okay. So I would say 1,000 years ago, beating your wife in another community would be wrong, but it wasn't sanctioned by the law, or sanctioned by any kind of doctrine, right?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's
God, I've got not much
beating your wife.
battery.
What is it right?
James
or
just
wrong?
wanted to clarify something
Like,
before we go.
I'm totally against
Let's find out.
bigotry towards Muslims or kind of assuming that they're all bad or assuming kind of that just because assuming that they're all bad. But like I will kind of criticize what I see as the Islamic doctrine and the behaviour of Muhammad.
It's dead, brother. Died.
Okay.
God
whatever.
doesn't want you to say
No.
it. Right, James.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you very much,
Yeah,
man.
you're welcome.
I'll put a little clarification in there. Thank you, guys. And which channel are you guys? Which one?
Content over everything.
Content. I see. Oh, lovely. Yeah. Good to see you guys.
channel.
I heard you won the award the other night for best for best channel.
You won the award.
Well, yeah, he should win
Raj,
tons of awards, man.
Raj was giving out the awards. Well done. Well done.
Who gave that?
Just heard about
Well done, guys.
Go on,
Start
Raj.
off with.
It was well deserved. Well deserved.
Shouting at me and running.
Do you believe that wife beating is wrong?
Content over everything. From your community.
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
I don't. And I hope I made that during the video.
Do you think?
No, unless like I know, it's unavoidable and like kind of the only way to stop her from like killing one of your kids is to push her or punch her. But like that's obvious anyway. So in general, no, right? Wife beating's immoral. Apart from like
I don't know.
extenuating circumstances.
Physically harming anyone's immoral unless it's in self-defense. That's my
What
view of
about
sport.
disciplining your children?
Well, that was only made illegal in this country last year.
Well, obviously